ZombieTech. Welcome to ZombieTech, a forum for engineers, scientists, and inventors to ponder on the technologies needed to survive the inevitable zombie apocalypse.
She's Eddie.
He's Whisker.
And usually I don't say this for returning guests, but he's not a guest, folks. He's a host on one of our other shows. Who do we have this week?
We have Shane Ward, or at Obdagil, or Gilligan. Where do the names come from?
Well, Obdagil is OBD Gil, which is one blue door Gil. All the guys in my band have one blue door and whatever their nickname is.
Oh.
So it just makes it easier for us to talk to each other on Twitter because nobody can remember their handles. So it's just OBD and then this person, this person, this person. It just makes it easier.
Now, does that help with band drama? Knowing
Not
that
really.
If you're too dramatic, that your Twitter handle will get defuncted?
Well, out of the band, there's 5 members in the band, and 4 of us have OBDs, and 1 of us doesn't.
Oh.
So that's probably going to be the dramatic person. They've got their plan B all ready to go.
Not necessarily. She's just the one female in the band.
Oh, I
So,
see.
yeah.
I see.
That's whatever the case. Anyway, yeah.
So what do you do in the band then?
I'm a rhythm guitar player / guy who records the band,
Ah, okay.
etc.
They let him play guitar because he has access to a recording studio.
Right. Yeah,
Ouch.
Exactly. He's not the greatest guitar player in the world, but yeah, no. This is off topic. Gilligan came about because of an unfortunate beach ball accident.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Explain.
Yeah.
We were my company I work for. We went out to Grand Beach in the summer, which we have summer for a month, and
And you got to watch out for the icebergs when you go swimming.
exactly. Anyway, I was wearing a postie hat, which is kind of like Gilligan hat, and we were playing beach ball in the water, just kind of kicking a ball around or whatever. And I jumped for one and went underwater and came back up. And the thing was plastered to my head, so my boss was just like, "Ha ha ha! You look like Gilligan." And ever since then, every record I've ever done says Shane brackets Gilligan brackets Ward on every one. There's about 250 albums with my name on it like that.
250.
So, yeah.
Good gracious.
So you've produced almost as many records as I have podcasts.
Pretty much,
Yes.
yeah. They're not all produced by me though. Every single remaster, every single compilation that was, done in the last 10 years, that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I think some listeners on this show might be interested to know that you are one of those guys that takes old decaying media and saves it for future generations.
Yeah, there's been numerous occasions where I've had to take tape that was actually molding, and
we're talking about like mastered audio tapes from a recording studio, the original copy of the recording type of deal here, right?
Yes, one of a kind tapes too on a lot of occasions, and sometimes tapes that are left tails in so that every single tape that goes brain's not working. The tape layers go over top of each other. Normally you want to leave them so the audio doesn't overlap, so you end up with everything when you put a tape away, it's at the tail end of the tape, not at the start of the tape. And so what happens is the layers sit on top of each other. If you have it the wrong way, which is starting from the first song, you get these little ghost notes of what happened the previous time the tape went by, kind of on the layers. So yeah, it's not good. I explained this once before, but yeah, it's anyway, yeah, moldy tape, and there's times when I've had to bake it, which
like in an oven.
Yeah, in a homemade oven.
Wow.
You basically make a cardboard box. Don't do this at home unless you make a cardboard box. You get a thermometer, you stick it in, you put a bunch of tapes on what they call, they're pancaked. So they didn't have the actual tape casing on them. They're unscrewed, and it's just a pancake of the tape after you take the metal bracket that holds it together.
Yeah.
I guess the reel. They take
Yeah.
them off. Guys would just leave them pancaked. I don't know if there was a shortage of the actual reels, but that's how they would leave them. And so you take all these things out and you put them in a box, and you get a blow dryer, and then you heat it up to about 120 Fahrenheit or 180, and for like 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah.
And then you put them on the machine and you run them as quickly as possible before they fall apart.
Oh.
But the thing is, because you have to re-excite the magnetic particles, right? Because what happens is
Is that the scientific term for it? The magnetic particles?
Sure. What it is that the tape sticks together over so much time.
Right.
So if you don't do that, you get really crappy response coming back from the low end and really the high end. But you can't even run the tape. You string it up, hit play, it'll play for 2 seconds, stop. Then you string it up, hit play, it'll play for 2 seconds, jam up again. It's just so much gum that's built up over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's ugly. And then also, cassette transfers and record transfers, 45s, all that kind of stuff too I've done. So, out of all of the 250 albums, there's like 75 I've produced, and the rest of it's basically all those transfers. And there's a lot of transfers that haven't been released either, so.
Sure.
Yeah,
so
fun.
A couple of things. You said don't try this at home. This is ZombieTech, so the disclaimer's a little bit different. Don't try this unless zombies are trying to eat you.
Mm-hmm.
Then go right ahead. Laws do not apply, nor do common sense. Now, the other thing, Shane, in the zombie apocalypse, one of the big problems that we've talked about on this show is that if we survive, right, that's a pretty big if. Maybe not in Winnipeg, where the zombies are probably going to be frozen solid 9 months out of the year. But, down here where sane people live, in the zombie apocalypse, one of the problems if we survive is how do we not lose all of the progress that's been made that came before us?
Agreed.
It's kind of a big deal, and knowing how to do things like save old film and tape is probably a pretty useful skill to have if we actually make it that far.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I personally think somebody needs to build a bunker and put this stuff in, not online, but somewhere that, you can kind of find it at some point.
I hear that a lot of the film studios now have like bank vault type bunkers that are humidity controlled and light controlled and all that, temperature controlled. I know the Vatican also has their library where they keep a lot of things like that. The older documents end up there in a completely controlled environment.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the major record labels do that too. Part of the problem with the media nowadays is everything's online, and it's in the cloud. But if a zombie apocalypse happens, the cloud goes down, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have media in actual book form, and I don't know what we would do for music, obviously, though, because
just play it with my guitar.
Have to just play it. It would go back to what music originally was, not what it's become,
Right.
which is marketed, business. Because if you wouldn't be able to play music on anything unless you had batteries, maybe. But
right. So with this old media, do you what does it become in the end? Do you just like transfer from tape to tape, like old tape to a new tape, or is it old tape to like digital file?
Yeah, old tape to CD masters normally.
Okay.
Usually, I never kept 24-bit WAV files or anything like that. Although I did do some transfers for another record company where they got DVD backups of everything. But normally I was making CD masters, and this is previously recorded material, so it was for use for production after the fact. So usually what I would do is, make 3 copies of the master, so there's a safety that basically goes away and nobody remembers it, and then there's the production copy, and then a CD master copy. But mostly just for safekeeping. The original catalog from 1974 to 1980 was all on 1/4-inch tapes, and they were looking at I don't know, 140, 200 reels of music, some of which has been used since then, some of it which is just basically updated the archival stock, right? Like some of that stuff was transferred from every time a new medium came out, so it was like went from quarter inch to DAT, and then I didn't take the DAT. I went back to the quarter inch and then transferred that to make the CD masters because that's not the greatest technology in the world to work with. And I also didn't trust a lot of the crap that the other guys had done to some of the masters.
Those bastards.
Yeah, they would take a quarter inch master, they'd brick wall limited it going into the DAT machine. So when I get it, it's so distortedly square waved out.
Sounds like what I have to do with Shane's audio every week for patch bay.
Yeah, but this is like, I mean, it's a master, right? And so it was like, for my boss, he was doubling the work, but
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I just have that brain for it. But yeah, what was the original part of the question?
No, there was no original part. That's very cool. I didn't know you did restoration. I mean, that's like, I know Whisker sometimes watches documentaries on music restoration, and I didn't know that you do them, and that's very cool.
That's actually really what, for a long time, was just the main focus. I mean, I was doing sessions and stuff too, but I mean, more often than not, restoration was, 70% of the job. One thing about doing a reel transfer is never walk away from a reel. I did that one time, and something goofy happened, and I came back in, and I had 450 feet of tape all over the.
Oh my gosh!
And I had hand roll it with a pencil and uncurl it. And the thing is, you can't cut it.
Yeah.
As you cut it, you screw it up. So that was a rookie mistake. So, getting back to the heating stuff, the thing is, you can't overheat the reels. If you overheat them, you destroy them.
Melt them, right?
Yeah. And if it's a one-shot deal if that's the one and only tape, chances are I won't do it unless I absolutely have to. But, yeah, you pretty much get one kick at it, and once after that it's kind of kaput, right? So yeah, that's the reason for the thermometer.
What are some of the more interesting ones that you've done before,
as far as transfers are concerned?
Restorations, I suppose, or yeah.
Well, I had one time, it was very CSI. It was funny. This record company called me up and they said, being an audio expert, is there any way that you can tell us if this other record company is using our track illegally licensed, right? Because and what the guy thought was I had some kind of kick-ass software like CSI where I could, bring up the waveform and then like match up the other waveform and be like, yeah, that's
99% match.
Yeah, like in 2 seconds, hit a button and shit.
Enhance.
Yeah, it was really hilarious. And so I said to the guy, I'm like, well, send me both tracks. And I said, all I can really give you is my reputation as an audio engineer.
Right.
There's no, and actually to say, like, there is no CSI program, but I can, if you want me to go to court, I can guarantee that this is the exact same song. And it was actually like, if you listen back to their version and the other record label's version, which was, they basically ripped it off another record and put it out and claimed it was theirs. They're both exactly the same length. You listen to them, they're exactly the same pitch. They're exactly the same singer. There's exactly the same intro, verse, chorus. Like it was exactly the same.
Why would they think they get away with it?
Because
they didn't know Shane was on the job.
No, well,
Super Shane.
Which I always tell everybody, there's a big difference between selling, 30 copies out of the back of your trunk and 10,000 copies out of the back of your trunk, right?
Absolutely.
So I think people do this all the time. It's how often do you get caught, right? That was basically the gist of the situation. So yeah, that was one sort of instance that was funny.
Sure.
Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff where I've had to do restoration on cassettes of like native elders. And what this guy was going around, he's part of like a Native Languages Association. And he would go and talk to these elders and record them on one of those really shitty handheld cassette recorder, the little teeny tape. I don't even know what Whisker. Do you know what kind of tape those are?
I don't know the name for that format, but yeah, I think everyone.
Like those micro little tapes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
They sound like balls. Anyway.
I had La Bamba on mine.
So that's what balls sound like.
That's exactly it. That reminds me of Airheads. Anyway, I'll get back to that. But so this guy was going around and doing these, and I sort of said to him, I'm like, you really got to get a better recording device because this just sounds like crap. Like, can you go and tape this guy again? Oh, just out of curiosity. And of course, all these tapes were made 15 years ago, and all these guys have already passed away. So it's like, and a lot of the times I'm doing stuff like that. It's, you know, you're the only one who can fix it at that point because the person who was on it isn't around anymore.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. I've gotten some of those ones where, you know, somebody will bring in, you know, a tape of their dad and him singing and playing guitar. So, you know, import it, record it into the computer, add parts to it, have the daughter or son sing along with them or whatever, and restore it to somewhat decent audio quality so that once we throw in all the other stuff, it's kind of like the freeze a bird thing they did with the Beatles, although not as good, obviously. But yeah, we've done stuff like that. So yeah, it's fun.
So for those who haven't quite realized it, Shane is a record producer, audio engineer. How did you get from being wee little Shane to doing what you do?
Good question. When I was a kid, I made lots of mixtapes, and we used to do stupid little skits where we would have me and my sister and my brother and my cousins
do that too.
with a cassette deck, and we would do funny skits and shit. And part of my language, and I'm also Irish too, so I swear a lot. But I was in a rock band when I was a kid, like 16, and we had to record a demo because we were going to get rich and famous and sell cassettes for $5 at a show and this kind of stuff. But of course, nobody knew how to record. So I sort of figured it out with a cheesy Radio Shack 4-channel mixer, a couple of really crappy microphones that only had the cords attached to them. So we had to be relatively close. And and a cassette deck. So that was where I started. And I think the Nugget was there before, but that was really my first real recording. And then I got a 4-track cassette and did recordings for people, you know, choir, piano player type singers and stuff like that. Whoever was sort of around. And then I joined, we had this association in out in the country where I lived, and it was the Music and Folklore Association of Eastman, and their mandate was to put on concerts every 3 months, and they would get local talent or bring in some people. And I ended up doing a lot of stage work. Like that was sort of my first stage work. So it was like setting up mics and DIs and making sure everything was plugged into the right part of the snake. I was like the grip guy on the stage, and and we got like a lot of the guys that were part of the crew were also like Folk Fest volunteers, which is the Winnipeg Folk Fest is like huge, and these guys would work like main stage, so like they knew their stuff, right? So so did that kind of stuff, and then as time went on, I ended up being like the vice president or whatever at point in time, and I was like 16, so my uncle was the president at the time, so there wasn't a lot of people who were really. It was one of those sort of thankless organizations because people would show up to the shows, but you know there was only like a core 6 or 8 people who actually did everything.
Right. They wouldn't realize. The audience never realizes what goes into setting up.
No,
for a
exactly.
show. So yeah.
So that was the business side of the music part of it that I kind of learned at that point. So it was those two sort of things that kind of made me chase it down, you know? Yeah. And then I also, at one point while I was in high school, actually got and went to 1-week recording course at the company that I'm working for now.
Oh, nice.
So I was actually hanging out in the studio 10 years before I actually started working at the studio, or not 10 years, but whatever, 6 or 7 years. So that was kind of neat. And I met like the guys that are decent friends of mine now back then when I was still in high school. So, and then walking in there was like, holy cow, lots of knobs and buttons. And that was basically the gist of the situation, you know. Yeah.
And so did you, learn how to use, you said it was a camp, right? So they let you guys actually monkey around with their tools, or
they let us play with everything. Yeah. And we had this really wonderful, not a great engineer, but an amazing guitar player that was working there, and he was kind of being engineer guy. And so at the time, all of the kids in the class, some of them were more into recording than others. Some of them were just really good musicians. Some of them were sort of troublemaker kids, because musicians and troublemakers kind of go hand in hand. So for the most part, I guess, or at least rock and roller types. So they had us come down and learn the art of recording, but also, there was the one good girl singer in the thing. And so I think it was just, give us some options as far as career or something. I'm not really sure, but yeah, we got to play with all the toys, which was fun. So I actually ended up kind of like making a really decent mix at the time. And that was not having any clue. Whatsoever. It was just, oh, what does this do? Oh, well, that's a little bit too much of that, So the first time you ever sit down at a mixing console, no matter what you're mixing, you always try to emulate something that you've heard before. So, and I think that's what I was sort of trying to go for.
Cool. And then now, so from high school, did you end up going to college for like?
Yeah, I actually, I was unloading trucks, and there was these old guys that were like 60, and
you said you're Irish. What do you mean by unloading trucks? Like trucks that you're supposed to be unloading, or?
Oh, yeah, no, not those kind of trucks that stuff that falls off. No, I was working at a semi outfit where you have. Yeah, anyway, it was no fun, and. I went to college in Winnipeg. There was a school called Mid-Ocean School of Media Arts. Mid-Ocean.
Okay.
It's midocean.ca, and there's a picture of me there. So I went there, and it was like I think 8-month course, and it was full days, 8 hours a day.
Okay.
And I was kind of bartending at the same time. And after that, I sort of just tried to chase down, trying to work for somebody. I ended up working where I'm working right now, but it was working in the back, doing like the shipping and receiving and doing tape duplication and doing a little, not mastering per se, but like pre-mastering and archival stuff. And so it just sort of slowly progressed.
So now you're like big boss.
Yeah, I'm like one below the boss. The boss was out of town 2 weeks ago, and I was like the boss, which was fun. Nice. Yeah, there's this guy who's playing around on the internet, and I unplugged it on him because he should have been working. Even though I was on the internet all day, but
whatever. You're the boss.
Yeah, exactly.
So, is there, for your experiences? I mean, I know you essentially worked from the bottom up.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what you're supposed to do in the studio, or at least that was always the shtick, right? You're like the assistant engineer guy who went and got the coffee and the burgers, and actually in one case I read one time one of the assistants on a print session had to go and get him like a chair to record in.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't record unless he got a purple chair or some shit. So she had to drive halfway around town of her own gas money looking for a purple chair. Yeah, I would not want to be on that session.
No kidding.
Anyway, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. So it's like mostly studio work for you then at this point.
It's kind of 50-50 between doing studio stuff or being like the web design / Shane, can you do this? Because you're the only one who knows how to do this kind of guy.
Sure.
So I'm currently teaching my boss how to use the BCC function in email.
So he doesn't go and send it to show everybody's emails to everybody else.
Right. Yeah. To sort of send like, a sales pitch out to like, 100 people.
Right.
So send to yourself and then, type everybody's email addresses and put a comma, a space.
Right.
So wonderful stuff like that as well. I spend a lot of
audio engineering at its finest.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not 50, it's I guess 50-50. I mean, it really kind of depends on the day. But yeah, if there's something that needs to be done, and I'm the guy, other than the engineering thing, which I'm always the guy of.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's a little bit, it's interesting some days. Some days it's like, oh my God, we went through this like 10 times already, but whatever.
So let me ask then. Let's say you have two folks applying for the same job, right? And one of them has some experience and school, and one person has only experience. And say the guy without the schooling has, a lot more experience doing mixes and stuff.
The same question come up 1,000 times with, audio engineering stuff. School has very little to do with, yeah.
So that's what I'm asking you. Like, would you totally be like, yeah, experience? Or...
Well, I guess the one... Okay, so experienced guy is older than the other guy who just got his school?
Same age.
Same age. Oh, yeah. That makes it way more difficult. All right.
There's every chance that the guy who went to school doesn't stink at it, right? Even without this experience, you could still be good at what you're doing and show a lot of promise, and somebody like Shane might want to hire you. So I don't know.
There's advantages and disadvantages to both. I think the one good thing about somebody who's young is you can mold them.
Right.
People have preconceived notions when they've been experienced as to, and they have ways of doing things. I would personally, I don't know if I could work at another studio. I was just talking to a guy lately who was thinking about getting me in, but to work for him, and I don't know if it would work because then I would be working for another engineer, and there's ways that I've gotten so used to the old dog, you can't learn new tricks kind of. So that might be a problem, right? However, if experienced guy has a really good rep and is bringing business in, then you can kind of deal with personality quirks, right? But
so in other words, like school doesn't do as much, old dog can't do new tricks as past experience.
Yeah, it can, like I say, it really would be. I think it comes down to the person, right? Like, I mean, if we were really busy, I would almost rather have a newbie be able to take up the sort of not as much fun sessions, and then that would allow me to concentrate on the
more complex.
The more complex ones. Whereas if we were really slow, I would sooner have the guy that has the experience that I wouldn't have to like watch over his shoulder, and who might be bringing in some stuff on the side as well. So yeah, I think it kind of comes down to my personal opinion. Though I wouldn't bias against the person who just got out of school. Okay. Yeah,
bias against both because they're not me.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yeah. Good answer.
So, God, that's so cool. So being a record producer, like, I mean, when you tell somebody you're a record producer, like immediately in my head, I think of like gold chains with big dollar bill signs. Right. So.
Yeah, I usually quote the whatchamacallit. I have it on my freaking the cowboy sketch every time. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So is it? I mean, is it as glamorous as that, or is it a lot more of, okay, guys, you need to calm down, calm your diva self down because I've got mixing I need to work on. Like, what? Is it glamorous? I guess.
It's not really glamorous. It's grimy. It's
grimy.
It's not glamorous. I don't know. Yeah, I guess sometimes people get that sort of starstruck thing, like, "Oh, you do this for a living?" Yeah, I hang out with greasy musicians for a living. I mean,
then they talk to them for 5 minutes, and
I can tell you about the grimy part of it, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's not glamorous, really. I mean, dealing with the usually people don't have egos. I mean, musicians do, but when they get into the studio, they tend to kind of drop them when they're dealing with cohorts of theirs, just for the sake that, we're not dealing with huge budgets here, right? So it's the stuff that I do. I'm not doing the Rolling Stones or something where they don't care if the studio rates, $300 an hour. They're going to lock themselves in the bathroom and cry for two, and they don't care or whatever.
Right.
But
time is money, and they don't have lots of it.
That chair's not purple; it's puce.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, it can be a little grimy. I mean, a lot of the times I'm dealing with sort of old polka band guys who smell like Kubassaw, and people always forget that there are microphones on.
Oh boy!
I'll have a guy in the booth, and he'll have his headphones on, or haven't had his headphones on, but he'll be on a cell phone or farting in the booth, or like that kind of stuff.
Right.
Girls too, that kind of stuff that people don't expect to hear, or
I mean, girls don't fart. What are you
exactly?
It's a myth, Shane.
It's a myth, right? That's why they bitch so they won't explode. Is that what the deal is? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's not like any other job. It's close to being a bartender and a therapist is probably the closest thing I can equate it to, and a cheerleader per se. I mean, depends on the day, but yeah. Other than being the technical engineer guy part of it, you still have to deal with humans, and if somebody's having a bad day and they're paying money and they need to get this thing done because it's a deadline, you need to figure out a way to get them to get in a better mood, right? I mean, a lot of times I get to hear sort of the same old story from people, like the I'm gonna make it big story. I've heard that
sure.
one. And this person died and it affected my life really bad, and I wrote these songs to yada 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 yada.
Been there, done that.
Which is entirely, I mean, whatever strikes your musical fancy, right? But I've heard that story a lot, so that that kind of stuff. If you can get used to that, and you can get certain responses that you need to use it's very psychological.
How much psychiatry do you have to practice?
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And it's subconscious that you're doing it, kind of. I don't know. I stole one line from the previous producer, Danny. He's a really good friend of mine. So I always use "Let's make rock and roll history, guys." That's usually my sort of starting line. And I usually tend to sort of be the goofy kind of, not let's have a party guy, but let's have some fun while we're doing an album.
Yeah.
You
loosen everybody up.
Yeah, exactly. I tend to try to do that. Like, if you walk in all sullen and it's going to kind of cast a pall on the. But the thing is, you can't have a bad day, right?
Right.
And if I, get into an argument with my boss or something, and I have to go in and be that guy, you have to figure out how to do that, right?
Sure.
It's like being a clown.
Sure. Well, sometimes like being a nurse too, because it's not like you can take out your frustrations against your patient.
Right.
You've got to be pleasant. You've got to be comforting. You've got to make them want to walk and do things.
Stab with a needle because you're having a bad day.
Right.
Ew.
Right. I always tell my patients, well, yeah. I always say, you liked me okay, but sorry, now I got to stick you.
Exactly. So. And that's kind of the thing, is that it's not like being, a waitress or, the guy who's standing there at the window taking your order for a burger. I mean, if he's having a bad day, he's just got to go, do you want fries with that?
Right. As opposed to have a nice day with your fries. And whatever.
Yeah, there's no manual for what we do, right? So it's a little different. Like, you need to be in the right frame of mind. And there's been times where I've been like, it's not going to happen tonight. My brain's just not into it. Like, I haven't done it very often, but I have called like a mixing session where I know it's going to be a really hectic, kind of intense one. And if you're not in the right frame of mind, there's no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're tired or whatever. I mean, you have to know when to kind of call it too.
Sure. So, yeah. Sure. So then what do you do when people give you lip?
Lip?
Yeah.
You sort of take a break.
He records it. Hopefully it's in tune.
Time is money, bitch.
Yeah. Well, I tend to, if I've got an asshole in the studio, I usually will bite my lip, finish it, and never work with them again. That's usually what I do.
Sure.
I had one guy. I almost walked out, and it was actually, and unfortunately, it was a session for my boss, and it was his band, and his fiddle player at the time showed up, and I think he was very nervous to play, and so he had a big issue with the headphone mix. Couldn't hear it. Wasn't loud enough. And I had it like just cranked, and he was kind of drunk, and because he was nervous, and all he could hear was accordion. But like the accordion player was sitting right beside him. He was playing an Alcovox, which is like the loudest accordion on earth.
Yeah.
So I made changes, and I moved the accordion player into the room with me, and even everybody in the band was like, "This guy's just being a dick," you know.
Right.
And he kind of said a comment like, you know, "It's not that hard, blah, blah, blah." And once again, the mics are on, you know, and it was one of those things where he's sort of trying to say it to the other guys.
Right.
And it was at that point, I was like, oh, okay, you know, this is not good. And, but I just sort of like went and took I shut everything down. I looked at my boss. I said, "You got to give me 10 minutes, because if not, this isn't happening." So I just walked out, and, you know, we had a sort of better relationship after that. And the guy never showed up drunk, you know, after that. But the problem with working for your boss is he's your boss, right?
Right.
It has to get
you
done.
have to do his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's like, it has to get done because we have all the guys here tonight and this kind of thing. So I just sort of like bit the lip and went for it. But I mean, if it was a custom client and they're being a doorknob,
yeah,
you know, if they're going to be a dink, I'll give them a discount. And it's usually those guys. They kind of keep a mental list of, if they call, busy.
What can I do to sort of stem Addie showing up to podcast recordings drunk all the time?
Hey,
you know what you could do? I would put the old fishing line ankle height in the doorway.
Oh my gosh.
and
Shane.
Put a pillow about how tall are you, Addie?
I'm not gonna answer this question.
I would put a pillow at the height of which she is, from the doorway, maybe 4 inches, just in case, give or take leeway.
Bad.
Yeah,
so
that's
bad.
That's pretty good for off the cuff, eh?
Oh my gosh.
Sorry
you know
about
she
that.
always does to me? She always sticks little post-it notes to the bottom of my mice.
It's great.
And I've got to like bounce from computer to computer, so she's always got opportunity, right?
Yep.
And
because I'm never on the same workstation, and so as I'm going around in my workday, every time I go to use a mouse, it doesn't work.
That's awesome. And is it like mundane notes that you get, or are these
no notes? She just sticks them to the bottom so that the laser eye can't see the table, and you can't tell that it's there.
That's like my wife. Every time I yawn, she'll stick her finger and touch my tongue and ruin my yawn. Just on purpose.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. That's a good trick. You can keep that one for later. There's other ones too, but that's the one I can remember off the top of my head. She also claims she has no idea where the garbage can is. She's like, "I've never seen it before. We'll be standing outside in the backyard right in front of me. I've never seen this before. I don't know what you're talking about."
That would be a good trick to work on Whisker. I think I shall try that.
The tongue trick? Or
the trash can trick.
It's funny.
That'd be lovely. So, what is the most fun part of your job then? Would you say?
It's definitely not drum editing.
That bad, huh?
I hate drum editing. Actually, well, any kind of like making stuff, you know, trying to make it better than it ever will be. I don't know. I like dealing with people. You know, I always kind of enjoyed the magic of the track. You know, like when you've got a band in a room, and there's those little moments that happen that like it's just you and the band that knows about them.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the outtakes are hilarious. I save outtakes a lot. I'm making an album called 80 Minutes of Stupidity, and it's just basically people swearing and breaking strings and, you know, singing in Ukrainian and then swearing in English at the end of it and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's probably my favorite part.
That's awesome.
And the setup, getting to meet people. Everybody always comes in there like, "Hi, my name's Dave, and this is John, and this is so and so, and blah blah blah." And I'm like, keyboard player, bass player, rhythm guitar.
Or you think of them as what they play or what number on the snake they need to be plugged into. Your channel 4.
Channel 4, louder.
Yeah, Marshall amp, Pearl drums, precision bass. That's usually what I do. Sure. I always do it. I'm like, I'll write it down. I'll write like John, guitar player, but it's always like, hey, you with the 4 strings, tune your 4 strings because they're not in tune. That's usually what I do because it's the only way to do it, really. Because if you work with a band for a week or 3 days or whatever, you kind of get to know everybody. But if it's a one-off session, I did a session 2 weekends ago with this blues band. They walk in and it's like set up, ready to go. And they're all doing the introductory thing and stuff like that. And yeah, it's only 3.5 hours and they're out the door. See, I barely remember the name of the band, let alone band, members.
Right.
Just, yeah. So that's usually how it goes.
Sure.
And I would hazard to guess that's, happens with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go back over the ZombieTech episodes sometimes, and I occasionally have to think really hard.
I'm always
to remember
surprised sometimes. I think.
Who the heck was that?
Yeah.
What did we talk about? What? Yeah. Maybe it's just we're getting old, Shane.
That's a good possibility. Yeah. Well, I have really a lot of gray hair, and I'm only 33, so every once in a while I'll work with yeah. It's a family trait. Anyway.
Oh.
Which
That's
is
okay.
what
I have white hair. So.
My head. But every once in a while I'll work with like a young punk band who are like 18, 19, and I think I'm much older than I actually am. But it's kind of good because they'll listen to me then.
Right.
Like if 33 with like dyed jet black hair, they might not listen to me. But because I'm like I look older than I am, like, oh yeah, old dude maybe knows what he's talking about. So it's kind of good once in a while. But it's not good when I go out for lunch with my dad and he's got dyed hair.
And
he's asking for the seniors discount, and I'm like, fuck that, I should get the seniors discount. So you're going to have to do some serious censoring, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not going to bother.
Okay.
You're Canadian. It's meant in the best.
Yeah. I'm drinking beer, and it's cold outside, and I'm Canadian.
Joey Hoodie, if you're listening to this episode, don't listen to any of the bad words, okay? Or I'm telling your mother.
So, if you were to have, like...
Eddie, the gray and white hair that you have, I don't think that gets you any respect, but all the gray in your beard...
Really?
Yeah.
Really, Whisker?
Nice.
Really?
Nice.
Couch tonight.
Drum roll.
So, if you were to have two... Okay. Is there a big difference between groups that have young people and groups that have old people?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
I've had old groups act like young kids, and I've had young kids act like old people.
Sure.
Usually there's alcohol involved to have old people act like kids. And there's usually another substance that makes the young people act like old people. But yeah, no, there's no difference at all. And I don't have a preference really. Except for I don't like know-it-alls. That's probably about the only, and that happens at any age, really. Yeah. So yeah, no.
Got
so,
it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So the most fun part is the people. What's the worst part?
The people. Great editing. Yeah. No, like editing drums can be fun depending on what you're doing. The worst part is having stuff that either doesn't lead up to the expectations of the band because of budgetary problems.
Oh, sure.
Having to deal with the financial part of it when you because you inevitably end up becoming friends with everybody, which is a good thing and a bad thing because it's a good way to get better music out of them. But it's also kind of a problem when you're like, hey, I need, X amount of money to keep this project rolling along. Well, hey, dude, well, no, we kind of need the money to keep this going, Right. So that kind of sucks. And I think that's really about it. That it's the only time when you have to deal with the sort of the bad aspects of humanity. it could be a problem, obviously. And that, yeah, I mean, it could be any job, right? I used to be a bartender, and it was great feeding people their first 4 drinks, but you know, feeding them the last one at the very end of the night, you know, it's just time to go to bed and go home. Kind of, you're being belligerent, right? So, yeah, it really depends on the situation. But yeah, I guess for the most part, sometimes editing can be very, very, very tedious. And if you've got, it's sort of that man versus machine thing where you've got a band that comes in and they play their hearts out, and then you sit there and like, it's got to be, for whatever reason, they want it like perfect. So you do an edit that there's no way that drummer will ever pull off. Like, you know, he'll never play it that straight. He'll never do those type. He'll never have that feel.
It's not just auto tuning. It's
Oh, it's milliseconds or not, like microseconds. Sometimes there's stuff that you could do, and it's not really fair to the music. But there are times when it becomes a necessity. Very rarely, but my boss's wife, she plays bass, and she's consistently ahead of the game all the time. So every single time she lays a track down, I basically chop every individual note and then arrange her playing to the groove of whatever the drummer does. So a 3-minute song will take me 2 hours to make her play right. And the thing is, I can't just go and play it myself because she has this sort of feel that she has that I can't really duplicate properly without just cutting it up. So yeah, it's no fun.
So I've got a topic here that I have to bring up before we run out of time here. So now, temperature aside in Winnipeg, because obviously on this show we've decided that if it gets too cold, zombies would freeze solid, so they're not going to be very dangerous.
Fair enough.
And that's most of the year there, so, you know, whatever.
Certainly -5.
But zombies, okay?
Right.
Now, if you're stuck in this and you decided that you were going to continue doing music production, okay? What do you think would be the right type of equipment to go for to try to keep doing that in a post big box store suppliers sort of world? How should we record music in that kind of circumstance?
Good question. Well,
don't Google the question, Moss.
All these big box stores are gone, or we're just not manufacturing.
You got no suppliers for anything that you might need, so you know you got to come up with a way to record music without ordering anything new.
Okay, but I could break into Best Buy with a couple of shotguns and steal like 10 terabyte hard drives, and I'd be able to record music for the rest of my life, right?
Hey, there's one idea.
Sure.
Okay.
That's yeah, sure.
So 2 hard drives, and you're still going to take the Pro Tools approach?
No, probably not. But I mean, if worst case scenario, I think that would be a good plan.
I want to hear post-apocalyptic polka, baby.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if I'm recording zombie bands and how to get away with not getting eaten.
No zombie bands, just survivor bands.
Just survivor bands. Yeah. Okay, survivor bands.
But we're on the move.
I thought the punk era was over.
Right, but you know, good.
Power chord.
That would actually be fairly awesome. Like or punk rock, and then with a guy just doing zombie type vocals.
Eating his guitar.
Yeah. Just feedback and
that was the 80s.
Feedback. I know. It was like the Germs and yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I mean, there's no way you're gonna get a hold of cassettes per se. I mean, unless you rate if you rate a Dollarama or something, you could probably get, crap.
Finally, a reason to go scavenging in the Dollarama.
We need the cassettes, damn it. And they have blank CDs too, so there you go. And chocolate bars, man. They have like the best knockoff version of a Mars bar ever. So I would go just for the Mars bars.
Sure.
And the LED lights. Dollarama would be the place to go, actually, at the zombie apocalypse. You need to go and get a backpack first from somewhere and then go to Dollarama. That's what I would do.
Okay.
for the puzzles. I mean, there's going to be a lot of boredom, right? You're going to need something to do. So, Sudoku books and crossword puzzles and shit.
That would be my first priority.
They should rebrand themselves,
Yeah.
Zombie apocalypse survival
store.
supplies.
I don't know. Yeah, it would almost just. Well, the thing is, if there's no power, there's no computers, right?
We have power. Assume we have power.
Assume okay.
Generator power, though.
Some of the participants in this particular recording session can take care of that.
Right.
Okay. I talked to Whisker about this before, but I actually knew a guy who had a whole 16-track studio running in his shed off of solar panels that he bought from like the power inverter panels from like Canadian Tire or something. Because the thing is, a lot of audio gear doesn't take a lot of power. It's not like running a fridge or something.
Mm-hmm.
Computers take a little bit of power, but like a basic 16-channel mixer and an 8-app machine, you could like this guy claimed he'd be able to run it for as long as he kind of needed it, and it wasn't like he's recording all day. He'd record for 4 hours or whatever. So, in the evening. So, yeah,
solar-powered recording studio. I like it.
Yeah, and he had batteries and stuff too. So he would, he'd be running off the batteries and then charge the batteries up, kind of thing. So, I mean, I would probably try and do something like that because at least then you're being, completely not using any power. Because I mean, in a zombie kind of world, it would be sort of a luxury to be able to do that, right? If you're just using a generator to record music
but music would be a commodity because people can't get a hold of new music.
This is true.
If they've got supplies to trade, they'd be willing to trade for some new CDs of the latest. I could see that. I could see that for sure. I mean, it would. The thing is, I'd probably be the biggest scavengers for, breaking into music stores and stuff. I mean, how many, and the thing is, if there are leftover zombie music store employees, they're all stoners anyway. So they're,
slower than normal.
Even slower than regular zombies. So, you'd be able to get away with a couple of extremely expensive guitars before they'd catch up to you. So, sure. I mean, yeah, that would be my opinion anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I would probably go with the terabyte hard drive thing. But, I mean, yeah, if you could get a hold of a 4-track or, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I mean,
it seems like getting tape would be impossible. So, yeah.
You can't get 2-inch tape now. I mean, if I could, I break in somewhere and steal a Studer machine. And it's not like anybody cares about the Beatles anymore, so take their 2 inches and record over them. Right.
All the listeners collectively gasp. No.
Blasphemous. Actually, I know guys who rent tape because it's so expensive. So they buy 2-inch tape and they basically, because a 2-inch tape is I wouldn't record over the Beatles. At 200, I would sit on it.
The guilt was creeping in there just saying those words.
I would be like a dragon sitting on top of 2-inch tape. Anyway, no, the thing is though, like you're looking at $200 for 20 minutes worth of tape. That's what it's worth nowadays.
Wow.
So, and if you figure if you're working on a tune and you do, 4 takes of a 4-minute song, you're almost out of tape.
Right.
And that's not even a whole record. Like when Metallica did the Black album, they had a semi-truck filled with 2-inch tape.
Jeez.
Like you just think about it. It's like 52 feet, 48 feet of tape, 8 feet high.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, so I wouldn't, and it's a pain in the butt, and the machines are heavy. Like those Studer machines are what, like 300 pounds, right, Whisker?
Really?
So you're not. There's no way you're going to push that thing down the street without causing some kind of commotion, right?
Right.
So.
Got it.
All right, Shane. For new guests on ZombieTech, there's a couple of questions we like to ask every one of them.
Yes.
For the record.
Is this rapid fire?
Yes.
Like
First,
bonus lightning round?
Yes.
All right,
First
cool.
question. What 3 tools would you bring to your zombie apocalypse bunker?
One of those Leatherman tools.
Okay.
An LED flashlight.
Okay.
With some kind of battery supply situation. And polyhedral Dungeons and Dragons dice.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, I don't think
Yes.
anyone's brought one.
No,
brought a set of those
nobody
yet.
has brought a set
Dice
of
yet.
gaming dice
Excellent.
yet. So
Excellent.
that's good. That means we will have entertainment ad infinitum.
Right. There's a zombie behind you. No, really, there's a zombie behind you.
But I rolled a no.
Roll for initiative. -4.
Okay.
Anyway.
And the one book you would bring to your zombie apocalypse bunker.
Oh, that's horrible. Okay, it's a
You
complete.
get one. So do you get the DM's guide or the player's handbook?
It would probably be Douglas Adams' trilogy of 3, which is 4 books, but the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books.
Okay.
Is that 2 weeks
but-
in a row for Hitchhiker's
Yes,
Guide?
I think it is.
Yeah. However, as a side note, I might consider taking Holden Caulfield and Catcher in the Rye.
Okay.
That'd be one of the two.
All right.
Because
Planning on any assassinations? I mean,
no, it's not because I'm murdery. It's just it's a good book. Either like
oh, that's a different reason for reading it.
it's not that I'm plotting an assassination. So I'm trying to figure out how to cover up one. No, just joking.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I'll let
All
you
right.
guys talk about that on
You were
Patch
talking
Bay.
about deleting Beatles music earlier. I don't know, man.
Right. Anyway, is that the 2?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, it would definitely be Hitchhikers, I think.
Cool.
So, Shane, is there any links or anything that you'd like people out there to know about, where they can find you on Twitter, etc.?
www.patchbay.tv, and you can follow me on Twitter at obdgill. I'm also on Google Plus, which I've been really enjoying lately. So you can just type my name in, Shane Ward, and I think is about it. Well, and the record company I work for is Sunshine Records, so it's worldwidesunshine.com. Longest URL ever.
Cool.
So, if you're in the Winnipeg, Manitoba area, or anywhere within like 600 miles, because you Canadians up there will drive 600 miles to do useful stuff. He's the guy. Yeah, he'll put you in there, and when you make fun of him, he'll hear you through the microphones.
This is true.
And, the whole thing. You can experience this yourself. And you mentioned Patch Bay. That's the show that Shane and I record, and we put online every Friday.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a fun one.
I was going to mention if you are coming to Winnipeg, we're at 275 Selkirk Avenue, which is very, very close to this really famous bakery, and they make the best bagels, and they make onion bagels. And sometimes they cook the onion bagels at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm still working, but they're not open.
Yeah.
So the whole street smells like onion. And it's problematic because sometimes I want to bang on the door. I'm like, give me a damn onion bagel. So
That sounds delish.
Guns Bakery. They're ran by a nice little Jewish family, but they've got really big, but they've got amazing goodies and stuff. So I'm amazed I'm not as bigger. Anyway, I'm only like 4 doors down from them, so it's on the same side of the street. So
nice.
if you know where Guns Bakery is, you can find where I am, and I'll happily give you a coffee to go with your Guns, onion bagel.
Cool.
Anyway, okay, cool.
All right, that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you for joining us, Shane. You guys out there can find this show every Thursday when we have a guest anyway.
Yep. I think we may be switching over to a guest a month. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I guess it's a good opportunity because we have like 1 minute left.
Right.
We've done this is episode 66, so it's getting harder and harder to track down interesting people to interview.
Right.
Now, obviously, there's a lot more than 60 interesting people in the world. You guys let us know who you want us to try to interview, and we'll try to make it happen. Obviously, we'll keep doing that. But for this next season of Toymaker Television, season 10, we're going to be focusing very heavily on that and less on ZombieTech and First Spin. So less podcasts, but the videos are going to go seriously up in the cool factor. So pay attention to our YouTube channel. It's going to be really awesome this season. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We really appreciate it. That's it for us. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.